Our next speaker is Mr. Amardeep Singh. He's the Director of Programs at the Sikh Coalition. We know that since 9/11, the Sikh community continues to be targets of heinous hate crimes against individuals and their institutions. We are honored to have them stand with us today. We've become one community, and as we all know, we've seen stories from around the country since 9/11 that it doesn't matter whether you're Muslim or not. If someone perceives you as being Muslim, you become a target. So it's way beyond Islam, and this is very, very important to us. Mr. Singh?
Good morning. And thank you to our leaders and advocates and academics, in particular in the Muslim community, for bringing this issue to light and for standing up for America and what it means to be an American and the values of an American. I'm going to start out with a story. And the story is of a young man, true story, in Georgia. In a suburban school outside of Atlanta. This young man who's in middle school would be called Bin Laden on the bus. He'd been called terrorist in school. He'd complained to school officials. The taunts would continue. He then was physically assaulted. He complained. The taunts would continue. His religiously mandated hair, a piece of it was cut by a fellow student. The taunts would continue. That young man, Amardeep Singh, in Georgia, the heart of America, is one of tens of thousands of Sikh children here in the United States since 9/11. Our organization, the Sikh Coalition, has documented the phenomenon of school bullying in our community. We've written 5 reports over the course of 6 years on the issue. We have data that over 70% of turban-wearing Sikh school children suffer bias-based, bigoted bullying, conflating their faith practice with terrorism. I'm going to share another story. It's a story of a man named Dr. Amardeep Singh. He's a professor. He's a doctor here in Columbia University. He has a young boy who is 2 years old. His wife, graduate of Barnard College here, leads a nonprofit that is working with the community in Harlem on healthcare initiatives. That man, Dr. Amardeep Singh, that turban Sikh man, just this past year was violently attacked in a hate crime. And guess what he was called? Bin Laden. He was called terrorist, and the attack continued. But we know that he's not the only one. We know that he's not the only one. Over 10% of the people in our community report that they've physically been a victim of a hate crime. 70% of the people in our community report that they know someone in the community who's been a victim of a hate crime. Let me tell you something. When I hear from Reverend Breyer that when she saw the film, that there was a juxtaposition of the words Islam and terrorism, and the images were of people with turbans and beards. Well, the issues aren't just theoretical, they're very real. I think that part of the challenge, beyond consultation, which is absolutely critical, we should be able to see this film. It is a big part of America's story, and we are Americans. We're impacted by what's shown in that film. I think part of the problem is that the Board of Trustees, the leadership of the museum, they're not from our communities. When I have to go to my son's school, which I've done in the past year, and explain who Sikhs are, so that hopefully he will not be bullied, well, that's not an experience, is it? that anyone associated with this film has ever had. When I have to worry, when there's an attack somewhere out there and it's associated with Islam in some way, when I have to worry about whether my personal safety walking the streets of this city, and my mother has to call me and ask me about my personal safety and tell me to be careful, that's not an experience. That's not an experience that anyone associated with this film has ever had. It's so easy to be flippant about somebody else's rights. It's so easy to not take into consideration those who are not you or from your family. But that's not what America's about. We stand together. And on 9/11, as a country, we stood together. And this memorial and the film that is shown must be about us standing together. I'd ask the people who put together this film, I'd ask each and every single board of trustees members of this museum to one day tie a turban, grow out a beard, watch that film with other Americans, and see how it makes you feel. Do it with your kids. Have them dress like Sikhs, like my children do, and let them know how it feels. We need consultation. We need to be able to look at this film. This impacts us deeply, but it's not just us. This is about the story of what it means to be American and about how this museum can bring us together as a country. And when we're together, we are defeating terrorism. We are defeating the people who want to drive us apart as a country. So with that, our call to action is very clear. We need to be consulted. The edits that have been suggested by this coalition are modest. They're fair. Please give us an opportunity. This could be a historic mistake. And so I would appeal to everyone to please continue the activism, continue raising your voices, and let people know that this museum and this film is going to be about bringing people together, not driving them apart. Thank you.